listening to the Sovereign Society podcast, a spiritual lifestyle sanctuary empowering you to honor the journey, trust the process, and radiate your radness. I'm your soul guide, Sabrina Riccio, Kundalini yoga teacher, spiritual mentor, and modern medicine woman who's on a mission to anchor in heaven on earth in this golden era. Join me every week where I gather some of my favorite spiritual leaders, goddesspreneurs, and changemakers for some authentic conversations about all things spirituality, wellness, what it takes to build your empire, and so much more. Over the years, after my deep Kundalini awakening and a series of events like being struck by lightning, it's been loud and clear that part of my divine purpose here is to share with you the tools and the guidance that supported me along the way. My mission here is to empower you to navigate through these changing times with ease and grace as you go forth and align to your soul's destiny while staying true and real along the way. Thank you so much for tuning into the Sovereign Society podcast, and get ready because we're about to go in deep and come out the other side stronger than ever before. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Sovereign Society podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Riccio, and I am so grateful to have you on this journey with me today. I've just been so lit up since I sat in my second ayahuasca ceremony out here in Joshua Tree this past weekend, and filming this episode on Indigenous People Day. There's no accident. I was actually supposed to have this conversation with Shelby, who's my guest today, Shelby Dotsey Stafford of Colibri Healing. We were supposed to have this conversation a year ago, but it wasn't even this conversation. It was a completely different topic. But I was like, there's something deeper that wants to be discovered and shared. And so sure enough, she was in town for Joshua Tree Music Festival, and she swung by the Creosote Casita before she headed back home. And we had this conversation, and I want to just thank Shelby for being here and showing up, because it's been a huge part of what's helped me integrate my ayahuasca ceremony that I had this past weekend. And it's such a blessing that I have so many powerful medicine priestesses around me that I get to have these conversations and share vulnerably our healing journey and what has helped us heal and heal our lineage and really pay respect to the sacred plants and the people and the cultures that really pay reverence and really respect the sacred sacrament. And so this episode is so fun because, let's get real, there's no denying that the word's on the street about the power of plant medicines, especially ayahuasca. And I wanted to step up as a leader and responsible. I feel like I have a responsibility to speak up on behalf of the plants. It comes through time and time again. Doesn't matter if I'm in a psilocybin journey, doesn't matter if I'm smoking cannabis or if I'm in an ayahuasca journey. It's always saying, even cacao, it's like, hey, you need to educate the masses about the power of these medicines, because education is everything. Education is everything. This is how we get to really have people think for themselves and see what resonates with them and keep the integrity alive in these sacred medicines. And so this is my intention with this episode today. And I want to be able to continue to help people break free from the shackles and help them with the tools to help them heal from the past and heal their lineage. It's so much of my work as a shamanic practitioner and the shamanessa goddessa, right? That's like my fuel. And even when I was in my ayahuasca ceremony, I was writing about being the shamanessa goddessa and what that looks like and how I'm healing, myself through my being of example and speaking my truth and living my truth and bringing my shadows to the light. We all have our periods of darkness, and there's no shame about that. I want you to understand there is no shame about your journey, whatever that looks like, wherever you've been, whatever twists and turns. It is all here to support you. It is all here to protect you. It is all here to help you empower the masses, plain and simple. You showing up, you being true to yourself. That's what it's all about. And I just want to share this with you because this is what came through in my ayahuasca ceremony about shamanessa goddessa. So shamanessa goddessa is a priestess who is here to transmute anything that is not of God, spirit, love, universe into pure divine light. She honors where she's been, knowing where she's going. She is one with God alongside Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. She is on a mission. Her seva and her dharma is to help others know that they are never alone in this journey called life. She is free of her past. Her hard work of the past is acknowledged. She is one who has healed the lineage through her grace, her commitment to serve God, and to be the light she wishes to see in the world. So that's what came through in my ayahuasca ceremony, the fact that everyone is on their own journey. God's spirit universe knows what's up. He has it, he, she, it, thou, whatever you want to put, pronoun you want to put, has this on lock. And just know that everything is unfolding according to divine plan, and trust in that. Trust in that by trusting yourself and keeping yourself in integrity. So, and this episode is so good. And again, I'm just really excited to have Shelby here with me, because we're talking about these sacred medicines in a time when people are like ready to claim nirvana and sovereignty as their way of being. Enough is enough, right? We're ready to finally complete these karmic cycles and to live our lives to our fullest expression. So I want to talk a little about Shelby. So Shelby, she's a student of life, and she has a special affinity for plants and energy. She's so passionate about sacred plants and energy work and the healing, dream space, all of the work. She's dedicated to her personal healing and the healing of all beings. And as a registered nurse, a Reiki practitioner, and an energy practitioner, she's also a woman's empowerment guide, a ritualist and herbalist, a sacred space facilitator, and she's a carrier of South American medicine goods, which is really a way that she's able to pay reverence and respect to the indigenous cultures and these families in South America. Because let's face it, all the Americas, North America, South America, it was all indigenous land, and it wasn't until all the settlers came through. And I feel like that's what a lot of us are healing as the Westerners from like European descent. I know for me, that's what I've had to really work through and heal. But to me, I've always seen like me be a shaman, from Peru. Ever since I was a little girl, I was very connected to that. And this is a way that I've been really working on healing my lineage. And through her business, Colibri Healing, she's just offering these tools like hape and cacao and these textiles, and just really helping these families support them, through her work. And so I just appreciate this woman so much. And so I want to talk about what you can expect with this episode. So Shelby and I, we talked about the importance of integration when it comes to working with plant medicines, which is a period I'm still in right now. So you're going to be seeing me in and out for the next few weeks. And so we also talked about using discernment when it comes to working with ayahuasca and plant medicines. She shared with us her healing journey of shifting from Western medicine into becoming the medicine woman of Colibri Healing. And she also talked about what it means to carry integrity and respecting the sacred plant medicines and the ceremony. Ceremony is everything. Set and setting is everything. I talked about that in episode 40 with Casey. I've talked about that with Sarah Gale of Maps in the early episodes too. Set and setting is everything. We also talked about understanding trauma and how it relates to your divine mission and purpose. The importance of honoring your intuition before embarking on these medicine journeys, to really stay true to yourself on what feels right. We talked about honoring and respecting the indigenous sacraments and the traditions, how the medicine arrives in your human experience. This is really fun because when it's time for you to embark on these journeys, you will know, and the medicine will find you, plain and simple. And that's everything in life. It will always find you. It's about you becoming that vibrational alignment to that, right? We also talked about healing the shame around working with sacred plant medicines based on your ancestry, which was such a great part for me to hear. Because that's something that I've been really working through, and that's something I worked through in my ayahuasca ceremony this past weekend. And something that was very strong for me that we talked about that I noticed in my ceremony too was the importance of us understanding that we are cutting through the Maya or the illusion of the times we are witnessing. So it's again to stay calm and stay true to yourself during all the fucking chaos. You have to be the eye of the storm, right? Be the eye of the storm. And we also talked about what it means to honor the work that allows you to be in your integrity. So this is all a journey we're all here to do. And so I'm just, again, really grateful for this conversation, because I want to make sure, I feel like I have a responsibility to educate people that these sacred medicines are sacred. You have to ask yourself, is this a crutch or is this a tool? Is this a tool that's going to help you unlock the healing that you need, or are you using it as a crutch? That is key in anything in life. Shopping, sex, food, plant medicines, psychedelics, alcohol, TV, right? Your behavior. What is your intention? So again, I'm really excited for you to listen to this episode. It is so good. It's so powerful, and I am just so honored to be able to share this wisdom with you that Shelby and I have really discovered by being committed to our healing path and our journey. I also wanted to share that the Sovereign Society podcast finally has its own Instagram, and I'm working on building with it. So work with me here. But you can find out and follow us at Sovereign Society Podcast, and I'll be sharing more and more from the guests that have been on this show in the past, as well as topics based off of what we've talked about to keep you going. And I really want to work on building this community so that I can tour around and visit you all and have these workshops with people that have been on this podcast in the past. So I'm so grateful and so excited to be sharing with you episode 56 here with Shelby. And we are here to really inspire you, to help you go out there and be true to yourself. Honor what is arising and allow yourself to know that, like, all of this is perfect. All of this is perfect. So here we are with episode 56, Respecting the Integrity of Sacred Plant Medicines with Shelby Dotsey Stafford. I hope you enjoy. So welcome everyone to this episode of the Sovereign Society podcast. This has been one that I've been waiting for a year. Shelby and I, who I have here, she is a very beautiful, powerful medicine priestess. And it's not often I get medicine priestess to hold space and have this conversation with me. So I've been really, really looking forward to this. And we were talking a year ago about having this when the podcast was still the Sovereign Goddess podcast, because I met her, I think it was like Bhakti Fest a couple years ago here in Joshua Tree. And she's in my house right now at the Creosote Casita. And she has a beautiful company called Colibri Healings, and she's a nurse. And tell us more. All the things about you, Shelby.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm a nurse, but I've totally shifted out of Western medicine now. Through a prayer, I have come into carrying textiles from South America, and I'm also really passionate about healing. So holding sacred space, ritual, in all kinds of ways, just connecting to the spirit. Also very much to the earth plane, to the plants, to the elements. It's kind of my specialty.
Yeah, and it was super cool because before we pushed record here, she's talking about like, oh, I was listening to some of your episodes of your podcast, and I was listening to your conversation with Casey, which is episode 40, when after Casey and I, we participated in microdosing and LSD experience, and we also had a cacao ceremony, and she was listening to some of it, and I just told her, I was like, girl, that was your cacao. She was like, oh my God, I'm going to listen to it on a new light.
So awesome. I love seeing it doing that, like spreading.
Yeah.
Doing awesome work. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was so healing for me. And, we were supposed to have this conversation last week. But that day was the day that we buried my aunt. And it's so fitting because my aunt, she was the witch of the family and the medicine woman, and she was a midwife. And for months, as I talked about in that episode with Casey, like I've been starting to I was receiving the codes from my aunt as she was preparing for her transition. And 2 days ago from this recording, like I sat in an ayahuasca ceremony. And that's something that Shelby and I are both really passionate about, bringing to light and awareness about the power of this medicine, because there is so much, I don't even want to say hype, but I want to say interest around the sacred plant medicine. And for me, my journey, I drank the first cup and I drank the first pour. I skipped the second and the third. I just microdosed so that I can still be in the energy. And I have a history of microdosing, and I get messages from people all the time like, when are you going to teach about microdosing and things like that? Because the thing is it's within us, right? The medicine is within us, and these plants are allies to help us initiate and help us take it to that step. But as soon as you give all the responsibility or you give all of the credit to something outside of you, you disempower yourself, right? Wouldn't you agree in that?
Yes, 100%. kind of what I've seen where a lot of the confusion lies is that I've seen people just drink over and over and over and over again, but they're not maybe doing the integration work or the grounding work or working with themselves. Instead of using it as a tool, it becomes just a total crutch, a distraction more than a way to empower.
Yeah, and I know that was a lot of my history in the past. You know, back, it's funny as I say this because today, before she walked into my house, I just channeled out 3,000 words from my book. Oh! Meredith Rom is probably listening, is going to be super stoked. But it's been really reflective for me the past, 48 hours. And yesterday all day, I just fucking wept and cried, just with overwhelm of gratitude and like appreciation and just so much love and joy, the people and like the situations and what has happened in my life. But there was definitely a time where I was abusing MDMA and using that as a crutch, but it was because I didn't know who I was, and I think a lot of people who are, traveling to these distant places and like expecting that this medicine or this plan is that's the answer, right? And it's like, well, then you're disempowering yourself. It's like you're here to work with it together.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us too start that way.
Right. Definitely.
And that's okay. That's okay. We have to go through our process of figuring it out. Yeah. One that I would say though, I feel ayahuasca's on just a different plane where it's even more important to be very discerning about the way that you're working with it.
Most definitely. Yeah, I was telling her, I was like, yeah, when I was partaking in my ayahuasca ceremony, I've only done it in the daytime. Like we started at 2 and we were done by 9 o'clock. I was in bed at 11, like, so there was that light energy and it's very strong with the Christ consciousness and just like the church that I'm part of, it's like, it's so much balance of that masculine and feminine and really like honoring Jesus and really honoring the sovereign queen of Mother Mary, just like really respecting that. And it's been really easier for me growing up as a Catholic. So it's like now I'm in this like mystical Christianity in that way, and just to really see like being that bridge of heaven and earth, that's the way that I see my journeys with ayahuasca. And, when my first time I did ayahuasca, I was hearing like, you're here to be a messenger and you're here to deliver the medicine in a way that is pure and in a way that it is meant to be with reverence and respect. And, I see myself down the line being able to like maybe even create my own church where I can, living in Joshua Tree, there's so many vets here, and to be able to hold that space to hold ceremony for vets to overcome PTSD and trauma and things like that. And what made this ceremony different was like I was in a room with a whole bunch of people recovering from addiction. So it's a lot of people who have already been doing the deep work that it's just like it was really focused and streamlined. It's like, what are the little missing pieces that have been missing from me to be in that space of totality, And so as a guardian for the ceremony, and I was in charge of like creating sacred space and making sure the candles and there was water and just like everyone like doing my work as just who I am. And I sat across from the shamans and, being struck by lightning, that's the initiation of the shaman. So my experience with it is so pure and different. But everyone has their own experience too. So that's another thing, is just like really staying true to you in that way. So I would love to hear how, you said you were a nurse and you kind of drifted from Western medicine. Like I would love to hear your journey on how you became someone who shares various plant medicines from cacao and hape, as a fucking dragonfly just flew over your head outside.
Yeah, I'd love to share that story. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So it's been a journey. When I first went to college, I didn't know really myself at that point. And, You know, they say pick a major, and somebody told me nursing was good. So I was like, cool, sounds good. You know, I don't think when you're that young, you really have the context for those decisions.
Totally.
But I always kind of felt shut down in that environment. I always felt non-expressed and just stifled, you know. I know. So anyway, I went about that journey. I went through and got my license. But I always was I had a prayer of finding work that was more in alignment with me. I felt like it was definitely in the healing realms. Around the age of 21, I started getting my own health issues. I've started losing my hair, actually.
Wow.
Just, you know, I felt really healthy. Everything was cool, but then started seeing my hair fall out in patches. And then actually today, I've been on that journey now for 8 years of autoimmunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely been my own healing process of figuring out, you know, the whole picture of getting my body into alignment on the physical plane, figuring out what triggers are happening there. But also, you know, really working with the spiritual plane with this, seeing what the spiritual message behind it is, going back into my own ancestry and seeing, you know, connecting all the dots. So that's been my personal journey. And then that journey brought me down to Peru. And it wasn't necessarily for the medicine. I was just really ready to find a mentor to help me with working with energy, because I'd had pretty profound experiences, but I wanted somebody to guide me. So I literally did a Google search of, what was it? Shaman apprentice.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was, I guess, like 4 years ago now. And this institute came up, Paititi Institute, and it just felt like a total yes. You know, I had never heard anything about them before, but it just kept coming. You know, I pushed it away for a little while, but it just was there. You know, it just felt like something that I had to do. You know, when you get in your gut, it's just like, you know. So yeah, I went down to Peru, and one of the tools that they work with is the medicine. I was there the first time for 6 weeks. Very remote, super remote, like one of the most remote places literally in the world is where their institute is. They own, I think it's like, it might be like 40,000 acres.
Wow.
out in the Andes Mountains. So you're there. When you're there to do the
immersed,
work.
yeah.
You are there to fully see yourself. And I was ready for that, because I've tried a lot of things. You know, I was just tired of carrying stuff that I didn't feel. I wanted to have some answers. You know, I was ready to do the deeper work of my healing. So yeah, we went in and did this really deep journey, and one of my prayers was to find work, like I said, more in alignment with myself. And I feel like that's part of my healing journey too, getting myself all in alignment, you know. So through that journey, Paititi and I teamed up to form a for-profit side of Paititi, which was carrying the textiles and indigenous goods from the medicine people. So it benefited the institute, it benefited the weavers, it benefited me. It was just this all around win.
It was like conscious collaboration to support.
Yeah. So it was just, you know, I had no idea about textiles. That was not in my realm of possibilities at all. But it definitely was an answered prayer. And through that, I was able to totally step out of nursing, and then slowly finding my way in other realms as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, because when I was younger, I always, like, when I was really young, I was like, I'm going to be a pediatrician. Like, I wanted to help kids. And then my cousin, who's a doctor, was like, don't do it. The liability is too expensive. Become a nurse practitioner. And when I graduated from high school, I was literally applying for schools for nurse practitioner. And then I worked for the Miss Universe organization. I was like, oh, media studies. And just to see, like, those steps, you know, and now, like, they're all, like, interconnected. Like, they're all woven in together.
Right,
So that's allowing me to, create like an online space community where I get to help people heal, but everything is like kind of all weaved in. So that's a huge part of, I share this, to just like continue just to trust the journey.
Yeah. Follow the threads of your own woven life.
And I know for me, like I see spiders so many times, and to me that medicine is just like really creative projects and weaving in like this like golden thread that connects us to all things and all beings, and I know for me, since really diving into plant medicines, I really started gaining interest around cannabis when I was like 9. I didn't smoke cannabis until I was like 17. But I remember like my cousin dying of leukemia at a young age. And when I was in DARE, and in 5th grade, I asked Officer Pete why like marijuana or cannabis is quote unquote bad if Susan Sarandon's smoking it in Stepmom to help her with her pain with cancer. So again, like when you are able to connect these dots and see like there's a bigger picture that's happening, and I get messages from people all the time on social media like, thank you for being such an ally, like a plant ally. And I mean, from someone who suffered from prolonged depression for a really long time, like I would not be where I am today if it weren't for my collaboration and my connection to the medicine.
Yeah.
And something that I'm really passionate about is like bringing in more of this awareness and respect. Because this is like not new stuff. Like this has been going on for a very, very, very long time. And even the grandmother of psilocybin, her name's Maria Sabina, and I'm Sabrina Maria. So seeing these dots connect, and they're just like, okay, like this has been such a huge part of my journey of like my divine purpose, that I see is like staying true and honest about the red light, the green lights of like, go, 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 like, yes, 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 stars aligning, and so how are you feeling about the wave of interest that's coming around with ceremonies and plant medicines and really keeping the integrity of the medicine, especially in a lot of places in Peru and stuff, where it can be very profit oriented. And, there's a lot of stories I remember reading in Yoga Journal like a couple years ago, how there was like some spaces where women were being like sexually abused while under the medicines at some spaces. So
Totally.
this is a big conversation about safety.
Yeah, definitely. About safety for sure. It's been really interesting because whenever I signed up to start carrying these textiles, I actually mostly carried them in the festival realm, like music festivals and conscious festivals and things. So it's really like when I said yes to doing this, I didn't really realize how big of a yes that was, because in doing this, I kind of became a representative of this medicine, to our culture that we're involved in. And actually, I've been doing it for a few years now, and I've seen the shift even in that time. Like, it's just become so huge in just a few years, even. It's gained a lot of momentum. And it's kind of, it's confusing, I think, for a lot of people, It's, and like you said, safety and profit and all these things I've seen not only in Peru. I've actually, the only experience I've had in Peru was with the Paititi Institute. And luckily, my first experiences with them, I mean, I didn't know much about this culture before. And luckily, I have to say, I really was with a group who was in a lot of integrity. And I was very held in my healing process, But I have heard a lot about what's going on in Peru, but also here in the States. And I've seen it here in the States myself. And I've actually experienced myself abuse under this medicine. And I don't want to go too deep into that because it's still healing. It's been about a year now. Yeah, it's like really.
Well, thank you for even being vulnerable enough to share that.
Yeah. It's but I feel, it was very heavy. That probably the heaviest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. But I also feel that in a way I was meant to experience the trauma of what's happening with this medicine so that I can know, because unknowingly I signed up to be a representative for
compassion.
this. Yeah.
The gift of compassion.
Yeah, so I can have an understanding of what's going on. That's a gift, that's a gift. And using it that way is what I took from that ceremony. And what I saw, the energies were very clear to me of what's become kind of twisted out of integrity. It's, like you said, greed and power.
Manipulation.
Yeah, and I think those two energies I saw too with that medicine and that ceremony, that those are the energies behind almost like every darkness that's not just with the medicine, but like
in life,
with everything. It's it's that wanting to gain power for self. And I think that energy comes from a feeling of insecurity with self.
Definitely.
If you're coming from a space of being full with yourself, and you're not going to need to be pulling from other areas.
Your cup is full.
Yeah, and you're going to be giving, so I really think having really tapping into your intuition before you say yes to going on these journeys, especially with ayahuasca. It's totally important to trust yourself, because I had messages that came through that it wasn't the place for me to sit, but I talked myself out of it. I confused myself. I said, oh no, this is just this, you're just being, I told myself I was being judgmental because it wasn't my regular group. I just tried to say, be open, spirit brought you here. But I knew in my gut from the moment that I got there that it wasn't the place for me, that it didn't feel right. And then I also had this thing of feeling committed. I was there. So that's a big lesson, never feeling like you have to follow through with something if it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, there's such a huge conversation about healing the gut right now. Like, I had Robin Euclid on this podcast, and she's so passionate about gut health too. And I actually had that conversation with her the day, like hours after I sat in my LSD journey with your cacao. Like, I literally had that morning, that conversation with her. And so to hear it's like I said, like the synchronicities and the stars aligning, like absolutely yes. Like, I think there's so much of this like pressure that people are like feeling like they need to like try or dabble in everything just because society's doing it.
Right.
But then that's another like disempowerment, right? Like, what is your intention?
Yeah. And I also think another important point is when the medicine's supposed to come through, if it's supposed to come through, it might not be for you in this journey, in this life, whoever's listening. It might not be part of your path, but knowing that it will come to you.
Yeah, that's what happened. That's how she found me. Like, the first time I did ayahuasca a year ago, like, I wasn't going to sit in the ceremony. I just bought the house. I was like, I really shouldn't be spending the money. It was money, right? Like, something so... Yeah, so that's a whole other conversation. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't do it. And my friend's like, hey, there's a spot available. Your space is already covered. You just have to show up. 2 days later, I'm sitting in the ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm saying she's coming through. And, I was already committed to doing this ceremony. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then my aunt passed, and I was like, oh man, like, I don't know, but I already committed, and I'm really focused on like following through with what I started. And I was like, okay, well, this is the grandmother energy, and my aunt was like my third grandmother. So, like, I'm just going to say yes and do it. And like I said, it was very intense visually in the beginning doing the first pour. And then I just like fucking wept and surrendered. That's what I needed. I needed that surrender. And now that I'm finally writing this book right now, like it was like the medicine was like, hey, you're going to go through the deep, ugly part of the grief because of the 7 stages of grief. You're going to go through the really ugly, shitty things like now. Boom, hit. And I just fucking wept. I wept. I felt my dog. He wasn't there. I felt him at my feet. And I felt like my beloved holding me, and he was just like consoling me and just letting me know like everything that has kept us split and apart, like it doesn't fucking matter. Like, just keep doing you and just like allow it. So it was just a very huge space of surrender for me, you know, and that's what I've been asking for so long, like surrender, like release me from the shackles of like the past, ancestral, and like so much of the work I do is ancestral healing. And, you know, it's so funny we're having this conversation on Indigenous People Day, you know, and so I feel like it's now, like I said, we didn't have this a year ago. It needed to be now. Just like anything else in your life, it all comes when it's supposed to, because everything is unfolding according to divine plan. The more you know yourself, the more you trust yourself, the more you trust the process, the easier life can become. We are the ones that creates this idea that it has to be hard and challenging and all these things because that's what our parents said, or that's what the world tells us it has to be. But it's like, it doesn't have to. And the more you discover you, the more you do your work, the more you love and the more you honor you, and you show up in service with sovereignty, you show up in service with purity and just authenticity and grace, this life becomes easier.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, all that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I just, like I said, filming this today and recording this today on Indigenous People Day, it's like, I feel like they're coming through to be like, hey, speak for us, on behalf of us.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing what's going on, you know, like we're not alone, like physical reality that we're in, like this is all just a figment of our imagination because we have this thing called a human experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is that deep web that we're still really interconnected to.
And touching in on timing, we were supposed to have this conversation a year ago, but we were also supposed to have this conversation last week.
Yeah.
And it just it didn't line up until today. And today is Indigenous Peoples Day. So.
Yeah. And I know that's something that I've just been so passionate about, is like speaking on behalf of the medicine, speaking on behalf of the plants, because for a while when I was during my 4-year sabbatical after I was struck by lightning, I was ashamed of what helped me heal because it was against the societal norm.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Healing that shame for sure. For sure.
And like that's such the work of Brene Brown, you know, she's just really big about vulnerability and shame. And she's really the pioneer who really helped me embrace like being vulnerable, like transmuting that shame, connection, like the opposite of doubt is faith, you know, like really just allowing that, because the way my healing journey looked different than my family.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I was actually when I first came into plant medicines, I was reinforced that it was wrong by my family. So it was very confusing because I was having these really potent experiences. I was literally seeing trees breathe, you know, and dance, and things totally made sense for the first time. You know, the veil was lifted for the first time, and it was like, oh, it's so beautiful. There's just so much beauty, and I'm experiencing so much beauty, but yet I'm being told this is wrong. So realizing that those plants are here to help us, and you know, I think almost every culture, a long time ago, had initiation rites whenever their youth started to become adults with plant medicines. And I know it happened in many cultures. Anyway. Yeah,
like the Egyptians, they find a whole bunch of hieroglyphics with like them carrying mushrooms, and most definitely.
So you know, it's why it has been just recently. If you look at how long humanity's been in existence, it's just a recent thing that it's been shunned and shamed, and it's propaganda.
Absolutely.
But you know, we're coming back around. You know, this generation is waking up to just what's real.
We're remembering our past lives, and we're remembering our ancestors from the past are coming through us right now. Like, you know, I say, like, especially as a millennial, like I've been so fascinated with millennials and the whole culture of our generation since I was in college. I remember, like, this is all this shit I just wrote in the intro of my book. It's hilarious. Just like having that interest of like being the bridge, you know, like we are literally the bridge between the two millennias. So we are gatekeepers that are really responsible for taking what resonated with our ancestors, the healing, the culture, the traditions of our ancestors, what hasn't been working in recent generations, and understanding that that was just a trial and error. It's not true. But to also not shame the past, because it brought us the wisdom and the compassion for what was, knowing what is. Like the kids today are so in tune, you know? Like I was having a conversation with like a 10-year-old, and she's like, the world ended in 2012. Did you know that?
Wow.
You know, like these kids, they're so in tuned, and it's like, I'm like so grateful to be like part of the generation that remembers what life was like pre and post technology.
Yes.
You know, and that's why I feel like us having these conversations and speaking up on behalf of the plants, and behalf of the medicine, on behalf of the ancestors, the indigenous people, because the borders were just created very recently when you consider how old the earth is. Like there is no need for this division, these lines and these spaces of like, oh, well, this line here, if you're on this side, that you're in Mexico. If you're on this side, you're in America. So let's build a fucking wall to like no, that's all. Everything's just going to be crumbling. The tower.
Yeah. I think it's really the age now of connectivity. I mean, we're able to connect, fly, go, technology. We're able to connect everywhere. And that's why another like aspect of this conversation is talking about having shame of working with medicines because you're of European descent too. I mean, that's what my shaman likes to say is the illusion of separation. That's fortifying the illusion of separation. You know, we're all human. We're all on this planet together. And yes, I totally respect if, you know, the traditions have been handed down in somebody else's family and they're allowing me to witness some of those traditions. And I respect that, you know, that they're carrying wisdom in that line. I totally respect that. But also, I've often felt, because, you know, my skin color is white, that I've had people kind of be a little aggressive to me for carrying the Peruvian textiles. And just knowing that to trust your life path, tying back into that, to trust your life path, to know that your integrity along the way, and that spirit is giving you the gifts that you're to receive in this life, and share, and to never feel too separated when it comes through, you know, in a good way. And and then there's the other end of that spectrum of using different cultures or backgrounds just for your gain. We're talking about ego, you know, greed and power.
Yeah, that's spiritual egotism, you know. It's so apparent. I've talked about it a lot on the podcast, that spiritual bypassing, like all these things and these hierarchies of like, oh, because of the color of my skin, I'm this, or like, who, like, it's a very wild time.
It is. It's finding the middle way between those two ends of the spectrum. Like if I'm attracted to, you know, I know Kundalini yoga has been a massive part of your life. Like that's wonderful. You know, work with that. Like there, you could even bring it to an extreme where you feel shameful. That's because, you know, you're not Indian in this body. You know, like it gets to that point, you know, so there's that spectrum, and it's fine.
And then we're just creating more fucking problems than we need to.
Right. Yeah. And these tools are being shared. They've come to us so that we can work with them.
To serve humanity.
Right.
And that's what was like the biggest thing I heard from my ceremony was like, all the fucking shit that's going on in politics right now, it's all Maya. It's all a fucking illusion that's really trying to separate you from really sharing and living your truth, sharing your gifts, being in that space of connectivity. And that's what this golden era is all about. The golden era, the Aquarian age, is about understanding. The age of Aquarius is about cooperation and collaboration and community. It's not about competition and greed and like how, you know, some of our ancestors were part of the Piscean era, you know. It is what it is. Like, you know, coming from Italy, like the Roman Empire, the rise and fall and fighting and war and all those things. Like I recognize that. I see that. Does that resonate with me as my truth? Absolutely not. But I honor that's where I came from, because I can have that compassion, and maybe it's the Gemini in me where I can see both sides of the coin to recognize it's a coin. And so to understand that whatever suffering has been endured through my own experience, which has been so much of that, my first Saturn cycle, you know, as I'm in this Saturn return right now, has been so much suffering. But it was the suffering of my lineage, the suffering of my past, like my timelines of my past lifetimes, and the suffering that has been on this planet.
Yeah.
And so that was what was so apparent with my ayahuasca ceremony this past weekend, was like, enough of that. The hard work is done. Who says it has to be hard? Yes, there can be commitment, but it's so much easier to do things when you're in that inspired action and you're in that alignment. Like the fact that you're like, oh, I'm running 5 minutes late. I just wrote the whole introduction to my book, you know, like 3,000 words in an hour. You know, because it doesn't have to be hard work. It's committed work. It's focused work. It's work with integrity, which I think is what's shifting so much right now, is like, what is the work that allows you to be in your integrity?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. And that's a blockage I'm healing. I know that I'm healing. I've had this dynamic of either like, money. I get paid well and I don't like my job and I work really hard, but I get paid well, or I really like what I'm doing and, you know, I don't, the reward of monetary, or it's like we've had this complex of that it has to be really hard for us to survive in this world, where actually like it really does.
We're putting more stress on ourselves.
And then we're just coming from this depleted place, and we're just making it a lot harder for ourselves.
So as someone who, you know, shares these medicinal goods, where do you see the future of these medicines in humanity?
You know, it's hard to say.
What do you feel?
I feel that there's a lot of darkness that's coming up through this, so that we can see the shadow clearly, and really anchor in being in light through all of this, you know. I think, I don't know what's going to happen with the culture here with the medicine. I don't know, but I do think that these conversations, these honest conversations, you know, a lot of people going into these medicine realms really don't have much information.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here. So that's really all that I can know at this moment, but I do feel hopeful. I do feel hopeful. I feel,
how can we educate? How can we continue to serve, right? Like, that's just been so much of my mission and commitment, you know, like I said, that's been part of my healing journey, is releasing that shame, you know, because I did have difficult experiences in the past. But again, it's allowed me to be able to have that space of connection with someone else who may have had these experiences. And so for me, like, I've always seen myself as an educator. And so having these conversations, like, this is a way that I'm capable and able to educate. This is a way that to be through purity, you know, just through honest integrity and purity, authenticity and grace.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes, like, I know, like, I see it already, like, being a Kundalini yoga teacher in the festival community. There's a lot of Kundalini teachers that are my teachers and my friends that can't handle it. They can't handle a lot of the medicines and the drugs and stuff that are going around, you know, and I've been in both spaces where I was completely pure, like, didn't smoke weed, anything, like, just completely, like, clean.
Yeah.
And then we're slowly introducing with intention, pure intention, the plant medicines back. And then being able, again, to be that bridge and to be not only relatable, but accessible to someone who may just be on their journey, but they have, like, this, like, intuitive hunch that it's that they're going to be taking this leap. Yeah. But who's going to be there to catch them for the trust fall?
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Yeah, and what was coming through for me when you were speaking is that there is a time and a place, you know, because you said that you've had total breaks of just being with your spirit, and you've had times of working with plant medicines. And I that feels like a yes for me and my path too. I carry Hape.
I would love for you to talk about Hape too.
Yeah,
once you finish sharing
awesome. I don't work with Hape all the time though. I don't, because sometimes I work with it quite a bit. Sometimes it's not for me at that moment. And also always checking in with myself of, why am I working with this medicine? Am I distracting myself?
Is it a crutch?
Is it a tool or a crutch? That's a question. That's the question you always have to ask yourself, because sometimes I don't want to be with myself. Sometimes that's the most difficult thing, just to be with me.
And that's okay. And when that arises, there's no shame.
Yeah. So that's whenever I know that I should just be with me. If I'm reaching for something else, that's just avoidance. So yeah, having that honest conversation with yourself. And I tell people whenever I bring Hape into their lives, that's the message I carry. Everybody's on their own journey, so it will happen with them as it will. But to me, that's an important message, to have an honest conversation with yourself always.
Yeah, Hape has been, I was introduced to Hape for the first time the day before the eclipse in Oregon. So I just taught in front of 500 people.
Wow.
Yeah, I just taught in front of 500 people. It was the day before the eclipse. I was with one of my girlfriends, and we were at the Oregon Eclipse gathering. There was like this whole village where all the elders and a lot of the different tribes and different people. Yeah, they were all in this corner, and there was a medicine wheel that they had placed there, and my friend and I, we just sat in this like tall grassy area. There's like literally 12 hawks flying over our heads right now. and we did, and I did Hape for the first time, and then I did it again for the second time after I sat in ceremony 6 weeks after that. And then I didn't have it for a really long time. I had it here and there when my friend would come through. And then when Casey came through and we did that episode, he gifted me Hape too. And then I picked up some from you. But lately it's been a really powerful medicine for me. And I did it a lot. Not a lot, but I did it yesterday as part of my integration from the ayahuasca, just to like really ground.
Yeah.
And to really open my heart and to be in that space. I felt really grounded already with the ceremony because it was a lot of just like surrender. So I had to be, it was just me in my body, like really surrendering, like first very visual, but afterwards just very present. So that's what the Hape has allowed me to do. But I would love for you to share, because some people are like, what the hell is a Hape? What are you talking about? Like, you're sniffing tobacco? What? Like,
sure. Yeah. I get a lot of funny reactions when I carry this at the festivals, But I want to say how it came into my life was after my first big Peru journey was, it just through the magic of life. A man came into my life who lives in Peru. This was in the States, so after I came back. And he carried Hape. And he asked me to carry the Hape for him in the States, to become the person to carry it for him. Literally, I didn't even know what it was at that point, but it came into my life like in a huge way at the perfect time, because it was just after Peru. And I feel it came into my life for a lot of reasons, but it's helped me in so many ways. But one of the ways was to help me integrate. Like you said, it can help integrate experience. So that's how it came in, and that's still following the path of the threads of taking every moment, checking in with yourself, and seeing if it's a yes or no.
And what is your sacred why?
Yes.
Again, crutch or the tool.
Yeah, exactly. So Hape, I think Casey talked about it a little bit. What it is, it's an ancient medicine that's been used by indigenous people in the Amazon since before recorded history. I believe I read some history about it that it's probably predates even before ayahuasca was being used. Yeah, so it's very ancient. And yeah, it's basically a South American snuff. It's tobacco based, but they all have different blends, different plants, and therefore they bring different attributes with their different makeup. And yeah, for me, it helps set intention and helps set prayer. It helps me create focus often if I'm working with something or through something. It gives me that moment to be doing something with my hands. I really like working in ritual because it gives me that focused physical
intention.
Yes, exactly. You know, if I'm just in my head about it, sometimes I can't bring it all together. So the ritual really helps me with that.
It's creating that sacred space, that container.
So the hapes really helped me create ritual. It's also really helped me to bring all my energy back to me. You know, it's easy to get scattered in this world, get really just, for me, I can get pitta and vata, you know, just everywhere. And it's helped me come back down into my body. So it's really aided me at times in my life.
Yeah, because I think I've been working with it a lot because, like I said, it's just been really allowing me to ground because I am Kapha. I'm a Kapha Pitta, but being a Gemini, I'm very
also Gemini.
very airy. So it allows me to really ground, and like luckily I have that Virgo moon that's like that earth that allows me to ground, and I live in Joshua Tree that like allows me to ground. But yeah, it just really allows me to like streamline and focus. And when I hold this ceremony and hold this space and this ritual, like the one that I've got from you, it's been so hard for me. And just like really being in that space of like self-love, self-care, like what do I need right now so that I can continue to serve? You know, how can I continue to show up?
Yeah. I also want to touch on constitutions with medicine, and that, yeah, spiritually it might not be the right time for one to sit with a medicine, but also realizing that, you know, when we work with more subtle herbs, we're always looking like, does this work with my constitution? Is this a drying herb? Does this herb bring moisture? How will this plant work with my whole makeup? Well, also with the power plants, we need to look at that too.
Wow, powerful.
Because, you know, with dealing with the autoimmune conditions that I'm dealing with now, it's come through that working with ayahuasca at this time may not be what my body, because ayahuasca is a cold plant, and I'm working with a Chinese medicine woman right now, and to look at the energetics of what's happening, the cold could not be what's going to bring the whole energetics of my system into balance right now. So realizing that too, you know, how is it going to work with the entire...
Let's create a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
Wow. Such a powerful space. Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, with your background in nursing too, how do you see like these medicines? How do we like instead of, because this is something I'm really working on healing, is like not shaming Western medicine.
Yeah, you know,
right?
I'm working on it too. It's definitely a healing process for me. Yeah, I'm working with knowing that it has its place. For sure, it does. You know, if we have an emergency, we're an herb sticking it, you know, if our arm gets cut off, sticking an herb on it probably isn't going to be the best medicine for that at that time. You know, we have technologies that can help with these cases, but for me, the focus of not having much answers to long-term issues other than covering up the symptoms has been the challenge. But you said not shaming Western medicine. So honoring what it has offered us, but finding our way in what is going to work for us to keep our bodies in the best balance.
Well, the Eastern medicine brings a lot more of that spirit essence.
Right.
That the Western really doesn't.
Right.
Western's very logic, and it is very...
boxes.
It's very logic in that way, when there is definitely a time for logic.
Yeah. Yes. And that's like honoring the masculine and the feminine. You know, we need both. We need both to define the balance within.
Yeah, I look forward to the day where, you know, Western medicine, I mean, they're already seeing like Reiki in hospitals and stuff, which is good. I mean, I'm having a lot of weariness with the symbols of Reiki just because there's a lot of things being infiltrated right now. But it's positive directions talking about really nutrition, talking about sleep, meditation, perfect example, meditation. How a lot more people are really diving into meditation, and it's really being honored more, even in Western medicine. Just really respected in that way to like really slow down the blood pressure and to be more present and more in tune. And shut down the chitter chatter in the brain. Like, you know, I feel like meditation is a huge gateway to be that bridge.
Most definitely.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the system's going to have to, it's shifting. But it's for me, when I was in the Western medicine context, it was challenging to find the place to bring all this in, because we were kind of in survival mode, working in the hospital on the floors. So something's going to have to shift.
Well, the rise of naturopaths, right? Like, what a blessing. And right now there's a lot of them that are, the FDA is kind of really stopping it because they're not making money. So it's lobbyists and stuff, because people are actually healing. A lot of the mindset around Western medicine has been in that lack mentality of profit and greed. And like we were talking
the
about,
energy behind everything that's distorted.
It's just the perception of it is completely skewed. And so, just to see like how they're like, you know, a lot of Western medicine has been in the mindset of like, they don't want people to get better because then they don't make money.
Right. Yeah. Of course, they want people to take pharmaceuticals and yeah.
It's a very interesting, and I feel like that's why there has been the rise of plant medicines, and there is kind of like an energetic infiltration trying to happen, but the light always wins.
Yeah.
The light always wins.
That's what I said. I feel hopeful.
Yeah.
I see darkness, or, you know, the dark side of things and a lot of things, but I feel very hopeful.
Because the darkness, even in our own journeys, when we're in those dark periods, those are the moments of growth.
Right. Yes.
The seeds are growing underground.
Exactly.
The roots are growing underground. So that's where I have faith. More than hope, I have faith, knowing that this dark period we're experiencing is an opportunity for us to really come together, for us to really focus on what's actually important, to speak up on what we actually believe in, and to use this to choose again. Like if it's not working, you know, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that's what's been happening for so long. And I've been seeing that for so many years. And like, you know, every time I'm seeing like another, like more progress, I'm like, yes. And this, like, this is where we're at right now.
Yeah. And luckily it's not maybe in the mainstream, but there's this information so available today. It's so, you know, surrounding myself with people who are feeling and seeing the same way that I am is not hard to do today. So finding the alternative way it's there, you know. And it's
supportive too.
It's supportive,
yeah, and it's supported.
Yeah.
There's a lot more conversations around it. Like I was like seeing just some of my friends, like even my dad, you know, like I remember like when I did my first ayahuasca ceremony, like I went out to dinner with him like a couple days after, and there was no shame of me sharing. Like, you know, I was like, hey, by the way, I did ayahuasca. He's like, what's that? And he's like, I want to do it. I cannot do ayahuasca with my dad. I'm not ready for that yet. But, you know, talking to him, there was the morning of my aunt's funeral, and I was like, so I'm doing ayahuasca this weekend. You know, I shared with him at the hotel before we went to the funeral. I was like, just want to let you know I'm doing ayahuasca this weekend. And so he called me in the morning on Saturday. And he's like, you ready, man? You ready? You know? And so just to see that progress, you know? And even like after ceremony, because like, you know, everyone on my family is still very like fragile with my aunt passing. So I just called to check in on my family and check in on my dog because they were watching my dog. And I was like, he's like, you're already done? I was like, it was like 9:30 at night. I was like, yeah, we're done. You know, let me talk to mom. Like in the past, I would have never been able to have a conversation with my parents after going on a plant journey medicine ceremony, you know, and
that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And to be able to have the conversation with my sister and my dad. My mom's still weary, but I'm working on her. But to be able to like not have that shame and really stand in my truth and speak my truth, that like, because I know they've seen how I've shifted. You know, and I think that's the thing too. It's like more so than the words, it's your beingness.
Totally.
You know, and when you're seeing someone you love shift, towards like their truth and their authentic being of who they are. Like that's where conversations get going. And I think like, again, like I just feel like a lot more people are interested. Like my mom's like, oh, like when you come to the house, can you bring some Palo Santo? Like, you know, that's the progress. And it takes us like trusting ourselves, knowing like the medicines are guiding us, whether it's sage, whether it's Palo Santo, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's psilocybin, whether it's hape, whatever it is, you know, like this is all, that's the biggest thing I heard from the ceremony. It's like everything is unfolding according to divine plan. God is governing all. We are safe. God is governing all when we allow ourselves to go there and allow ourselves to trust and give permission for God to govern us, because we are gifted free will. So until we allow that invitation to open, spirit won't come in unless you invite. And that's where that free will is. And the more you're in the fear and the doubts and the insecurity, you're inviting the spirit that is not of light, that is yearning for light, lacking light. You know, that's why it's coming to your light. And so when you invite purity, that love, the God, divine consciousness, like I work a lot, like I said, with Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and that pure divine consciousness, and say like, hey, I surrender. I'm willing to trust you for you to take the lead, because I have faith in knowing that like as a child of spirit, as a child of God, as a child of the universe and of this planet, I am safe. You know, and so that was like the biggest takeaway I got from this ceremony. And yeah, I'm super grateful. So I want to ask a few quick lightning round questions. Okay. No pun intended.
Let's do it.
What would you say is one of your biggest animal totems right now?
I think the owl. I had an experience with one the other day, and it keeps coming through. So.
The wisdom. And owls can see through the darkness too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. What would you share with younger Shelby?
I would share that she's doing a good job, and to just keep doing a good job and just give her support. There's been, you know, through this journey, yeah, I think that's the thing that the younger version of me felt that was lacking the most. So just fuel her up. Just fuel her up to know what you're talking about with your family, what you've carried for the whole unit and the whole lineage, and just knowing that it may not always be easy, but you're supported.
Yeah. What would you say was probably one of the most profound books that you've read on your spiritual journey?
Let's see if anything wants to come through right away. I don't have one that's like speaking, but I'll tell you what subject is like I keep wanting to read about right now is I love reading about the history of witchcraft right now. I'm eating up every book I can get my hands on, because this is not something we talked about, but goes with our conversation of touching into the roots of whatever body you're in now. It's been, for me, I've just started learning about my European roots, really. And it's like I've been attracted to all these different ways of spirituality, but for the first time, I'm really learning about the witches. And wow, what just a powerful new opening, and how excited I am for any information I can get. So
amazing. Yeah. My aunt who passed, she was a witch, and my grandmother, her mother, was also a witch.
Awesome.
My name's Sabrina the witch, right? So yeah, I definitely, and I feel like this is like the work that you're doing is like a modern take of that witchcraft, you know?
Yes, to find it's, for me, it's so empowering, because I found that word. I've always struggled with how to I define to others in words, you know, in a way that they can understand, that's cohesive. What am I doing? Who am I? What's my job? You know, and literally the word witch kind of sums it all up, which is still a word I'm working to claim.
There's still a lot of healing around.
Totally.
That word.
And that's a whole conversation for sure. But it's been a really powerful journey to continue to step into my power working with the witch. So any book I can find on witches right now.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so what would you say to someone who may be just embarking on their spiritual journey to reclaim their sovereignty?
I would say just keep tapping into yourself. Always, always, always. If there's ever any confusion, you know the answer. Come back in. What feels pure? That's the word you keep using. What feels true? And you know you have the wisdom. Always tap in.
And what would you say is coming through from the plants right now to share?
Being open to them. Not inserting yourself too much when working with them, and to receive with them. And to set that intention to invite the spirits to come through, to be a vessel for their insight.
I love that. And if there's anything else that you feel like is coming from your heart right now that maybe someone needs to hear.
I feel like I really want to share. I've touched on having some of my different experiences with ayahuasca. And if anybody feels really confused in that realm, and they want to have a more intimate conversation about that, to reach out to me.
Yeah, so where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me. My website is colibrimedicine.com. On Instagram, I'm at Colibri Healing. And those are probably the two best places.
And all the links will be in the show notes, as well as the Etsy on where people can purchase these medicinal goods.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. Like I said, the divine timing.
Yeah.
Sitting, because we were going to do this on Wednesday, and I was like, I'll hit her up before she goes to Joshua Tree Music Fest. And then my aunt passed, and Indigenous Peoples Day, 2 days after sitting in ceremony, I'm like,
it's perfect.
You can't make this shit up,
Totally. Totally. And I love that it's after Joshua Tree, where I feel like
relax a little more.
Yeah. And my heart's open a little more, and everything. So it's totally perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And go check her out if you guys have any questions. And, like I said, it was just, I wanted to be able to have this conversation with another medicine woman, because there's not very many of us out there that are active working with the medicines and sharing the wisdom with the medicines. So I just really appreciate you swinging by my house on your journey on, and for doing the work and sharing your medicine and the gifts and your integrity of respect for these medicines and for the Indigenous people and for the ancestors, because it's people like you that, this is how we're going to keep the integrity of the medicine thriving and alive, because there's a reason why, it's here. There's a reason why it's coming through during this time. Like, the plans are speaking through us right now. Because the world is it's in a shift, plain and simple. We're shifting from one paradigm to another, and this is just like the debris that we're kind of cleaning up. The plans are like, yeah, we got this. Just work with us, receive, allow yourself to be open and trust us. Like, we haven't steered you wrong yet, have we?
Right. There are guardian spirits here. Yeah, they're here to help.
Yes. So thank you again, Shelby.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I'm so happy that this happened, and I feel like it's just such a good practice for me to verbalize. I have all these experience in the feelings, but to really put it out there is an important practice for me right now. So I really appreciate you doing your work to allow these conversations to happen.
Thank you, sister. Yeah, and everyone go check her out. And, I've gotten a lot of messages about, like, where do I get hape and stuff? So go check out Shelby's stuff, because the medicine she carries is really pure, and it's really potent and really clean and beautiful. And it's been a really great conduit to help me really heal and open my heart after, like, grieving and navigating through more death in my life and my family, and honoring just family, in that way, and passing through the lineage and honoring, like, my inner witch and my inner medicine woman and priestess. So thank you again. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care. I mean, come on. How amazing was that episode? I'm so grateful and so honored to be able to be a medicine priestess for you, to help share with you and educate you about the power of these sacred plant medicines. They've played such a pivotal role in my life. I've been so emotional these past few days, with just overwhelmed with gratitude. And much love to my sister Shelby for swinging by my house and having this conversation with me, because there's not very many people, especially women, that I get to have this conversation about plant ceremonies and plant medicines, someone who really gets it. And so I really hope that you learned something from this episode and you felt comforted with this episode, knowing that you're not alone and that all is unfolding according to divine plan. And so I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you love this podcast, let us know. You can tag Shelby on Instagram at Colibri Healing. You can tag me on Instagram at Sabrina Riccio. And you can follow the Sovereign Society's podcast Instagram. I said it. We have it going on. It's at Sovereign Society Podcast, and I'm going to be sharing more about the people and the guests who have been on this podcast. And I just want to connect with you deeper, because I want to create a very strong community of light leaders who are here to really anchor the golden era, so that we can go forth, radiate our radness, live within our integrity, and share our truth and our medicine with the world, because that's why we're here, right? So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I'm so excited to see how this continues to unfold, and how together we are co-creating this beautiful life together. You guys inspire me every day. Your messages move me. I love seeing how vulnerable you are, how real you are, how authentic you are. And I just want to continue to inspire you and give you that courage and encouragement to keep going, keep going. Keep going. There is no accident with your journey, what you've experienced, and know that all is unfolding according to divine plan. Just allow yourself to let your heart to take the lead and live with integrity. Live within your truth. What is your Satnam? And radiate that out into the world. If you love the podcast, I encourage you to please subscribe. We are on all the platforms: Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, you name it. We're all over. And if you leave a review on iTunes and with the 5-star rating, it really means a lot. And if you don't have iTunes but you want to leave a review, email it. All you have to do is go to Sovereign Society Podcast on Instagram, and there's an email button. Send me your review and your name, and you'll be also entered to win to get a free soul activation session with me, which I'm going to be doing again at the end of this month. So anyone who's left a review and has emailed it to me, you are entered to win a free 45-minute soul activation call, where we just have a heart-to-heart call and we connect with each other. I'm just really grateful, super, super grateful. And I need you guys to help me to continue to get this message out. I want to build a strong community. My vision is to tour around the country and around the world, having these pop-up workshops, and I can bring my friends that have been on the podcast, so we can support you and honor you and love you and encourage you to keep going. So this is a group effort, and I need your help. So if you can just leave a review, let us know how you feel, share with your friends, and have conversations with your people. Most importantly, have the conversations about what's inspiring you. So again, thank you so much. And again, anyone who leaves a review, you'll also not only get an opportunity to be entered to win a free soul activation call, but I also have my sadhana, which is my ebook that I've created. It's a 30-page ebook to help you cultivate a spiritual practice. So thank you so much again for being here. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for being the fuel to keep going, especially when the going was getting tough. But I am so excited to see how this continues to unfold as I'm writing my book. Oh, it's happening. I'm so excited. And thank you again for your light. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your truth and your inspiration. You inspire me more and more. And guess what? The light is winning. Just keep calm and carry on. Just stay true and focus on what brings you joy. Understand what's going on in the world, but allow yourself to choose and be better. And we will see this world shift in such a beautiful light, in a beautiful way. I look forward to this. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be seeing you soon. Take care. Sat Nam.